May 5th, 1957 was a devastating day for the Pollock parents. Their daughter Joanna and Jacqueline were killed in a car accident caused by an out-of-control vehicle. Obviously, most parents cannot fathom losing one child. But to lose both of their children aged 11 years and 6 years at the same time was heart-wrenching. A year later, the parents find a slice of joy had returned to their lives. I say returned for the reasons you will soon learn. The similarities, the coincidences, and the all-around strangeness of the situation are too much to ignore. Joanna and Jacqueline had been on their way to church. They were walking with a friend when a car started swerving towards them. The car hit the sisters and they both died due to the injuries suffered. The parents were distraught, as any parent would be. This was true especially for the father, John Pollock. However, John Pollock declared that they would be having a set of girls very soon. No one in the town believed him, and most quit listening to him when he spoke such nonsense. I mean, how could he even consider this when the two girls had not been dead that long? But sure enough, a year later, John and Florence had those girls John had been speaking about. But although John and Florence Pollock were strict Catholics, John would tell Florence that the girls would be reborn to them in this way. On October 4th, 1958, John and Florence were blessed with a set of twins. They named the girls Jillian and Jennifer. Now this is where the strange occurrences began. The parents noticed that Jennifer had a birthmark that was quite similar to that of Jacqueline. One was located on her forehead, and one was located on her waist. Now one could insist that this is just coincidental. However, they would soon learn that the coincidences and similarities were far more reaching than just a scar and a birthmark. This proved to them that the twins did more than just resemble Jacqueline and Joanna. They had more similarities, such as the birthmarks. Throughout the whole pregnancy, Florence was skeptical about the words John used when saying that their girls would be reborn to them. However, shortly after the birth of the twins, the signs were not to be mistaken. They believed that their prayers had been answered. The girls were back. The family packed up and moved to the east side of England, and life became uncanny. When the girls turned 2 years old, they began to ask for their old toys. I'm not saying they preferred toys that were older versus newer style toys. They wanted the toys that they have been playing with before they left their former home. The toys that they were asking for were the ones that Joanna and Jacqueline had played with before their deaths. Then there were other physical similarities that were noticed that made reincarnation a very plausible explanation, including that one girl was thin and taller, while the other was a touch stockier in build. Now, what was also bizarre was that one of the girls also had what was called a splay-footed gait, which was just like Joanna's. Now, after some time, the change of residence was too much for the Pollock parents. They missed their hometown and moved back. But once they returned, they found that the young twins were familiar with some of the landmarks. But the problem is, the girls could not have remembered these locations and landmarks. They were just tiny infants when the family moved. It was not just the famous landmarks. The girls, Jennifer and Gillian, began to point out and speak about favorite locations of their deceased sisters. How is that possible? Now, what really threw the parents for a spin was when the girls, Jennifer and Gillian, began to speak about how Jacqueline and Joanna had died. The twins had a severe fear of cars. This was totally unexplainable. And other strange occurrences included the time that Gillian told her sister that she could see blood coming out of her eyes. These occurrences continued. The twins began to exhibit the same likes and tastes for foods that their deceased sisters had. Their clothing preferences were the same, even years later. Gillian and Jennifer began to identify some of their sisters' old friends from the school that they had attended, and they began to sing the favorite songs of their dead sisters. And when it came to the dolls that they would play with, the twins would use the same names for their dolls as their sisters had used for theirs. But scary times also took place. Gillian and Jennifer would have constant nightmares in regards to the car and the accident that killed them. And although they were identical twins, Gillian always seemed to be looking after Jennifer, just as Joanna looked after Jacqueline as she was 5 years older than Jacqueline. All this strangeness continued to baffle the parents until the twins turned 5 years old. Like a light switch being turned off, all the strangeness ceased. There were no more memories spoken that the twins should have known about, no friends named recognized from the dead sisters. It was literally as if Joanna and Jacqueline had left all over again. The memories and similarities and the coincidences were mostly gone, and the twins continued life as normal children and normal adults. Now, it would be easy to state that these experiences that the Pollock twins lived, had, and shared with their parents were just the false hopes of a set of grieving parents. To this day, however, the Pollock girls are cited as reincarnation evidence. The story is based on a real family, and the experiences and memories that Gillian and Jennifer had are just simply too much to pass off as coincidence. Now, doubters will likely state that the parents, John and Florence, were the ones that instilled the memories and dreams or nightmares into the twins' head, that they had spent all that time for the first 5 years, teaching and reteaching infants and young girls everything they should remember as pertaining to their dead sisters. You must realize, though, that the father and mother were extremely busy trying to earn money through the general store they owned. The girls Jacqueline and Joanna were with their grandmother most of the time. It would be hard for the parents to have known all the things that the twins knew. Their names of friends, the favorite locations, and even the names of their dolls would have been difficult for the parents to recall. The birthmarks are not something that the young girls could not have not only known about. There is no way to create those marks on themselves at such a young age. This is not only just the grieving parents creating a story because they had lost their only children. The Pollocks, John and Florence, had 4 sons also. The boys were all born before Joanna and Jacqueline. I guess one can say that the twins were in to give a heck of a story, as Florence went through a normal pregnancy. There was only 1 heartbeat heard by the physician. There was no history of twins on either side of the family. John, however, was very adamant in the idea that the pregnancy would produce a set of twins and a girls to boot. John Pollock had cast doubt when it came to God. He asked for proof of reincarnation as a young teen. But when the car accident happened, and his girls had been killed, he took it as punishment from God that he had dared to question. He believed his twins were proof by God that reincarnation was real. Again, is this all the hopes and heartache creating the similarities? Were the parents so heartbroken that they saw their deceased girls in the twins? The truth is, we may never know. Reincarnation is one of the mysteries people struggle to understand, a struggle to prove or disprove. In this type of case, only time will tell. Meanwhile, please try to explain all the similarities, the hows, the whys of the Pollock twins' early years. And once you understand that, figure out the coincidence of the birthmarks versus the scar and the birthmark, the friend's name, the name of the dolls, the favorite foods, the clothing choices, or even knowing favorite places and stories about those locations. The Pollocks have since then lived a normal life. Yet with a question in regards to reincarnation. Is it possible that they may once again have memories of younger days before they were born? How can two toddlers or slightly older be able to tell each other what is on the other side of the wall when they have never been to that location, much less that town since they were born? Reincarnation. Is it real? Or is it all wishful thinking from grieving families?